Hello, everybody. This is Wayne Tuttle, and welcome to Chasing Legends of the Superstition Mountains. In this week's edition, we'll be talking about Ted DeGrazia and the Gallery of the Sun. Welcome back. I'm Wayne Tuttle, and this is Chasing Legends. This week, we're going to be speaking of the famous Arizona painter, sculptor, ceramics, just about everything, architect, filmmaker even, Ted DeGrazia. Now, there's been quite a few episodes we did on Ted and various things, his buried paintings up in the Fish Creek area with Bob Ward, the Angel Springs incident in 1976, I believe, when he burned his about $1.5 million worth of paintings in tax protest. And we've covered a lot of ground with Ted. And this last November, 2019, we actually took a trip down to Gallery of the Sun. And we wanted to kind of give you a little bit of insight, see what's out there. Definitely a trip well worth making if you get a chance. Ted was born in Morenci, Arizona in 1909, and he passed away in Tucson, Arizona in 1982. During that time period, Ted accomplished quite a number of things, as people know. You don't have to go too many places before you find a postcard, a plate, a coffee cup, a tile, just about anything, which he designed. A lot of people gave him a bit of grief over the fact that he kind of became this mass-selling artist, but he understood as an entrepreneur how to reach an audience, what his audience was looking for, and how to reach them. He was well known for signing autograph after autograph and meeting people and being very down-to-earth, which is why people loved him. In fact, at the gallery, there's still his bottle and his hat and things in part of one of his studios. What's unique is when you look at the studios, you have to understand that in 1944 he built the first buildings there. But around 1965 is when he completed the Gallery of the Sun and started the other buildings, including the chapel building and his ceramics building, and a lot of the buildings run one into the other. One of the real interesting aspects of the architecture he did is he actually took cactuses and cut them and used those slices in the floors of the galleries. The galleries were all self-built. In fact, when you go building to building, as you transition to them, you'll find each one has a small fireplace in the corner. This is because Ted actually built these things by hand, and with the volunteers he had, that's how they stayed warm during the winter months. So these were a work in progress as he went, and it's just, when you go through them, you just can't imagine like they're building this. And you're looking at everything he could take, anything he could find. We looked around. There was a number of soda pop cans used in some of the artwork there. I noted in one area that was coat hangers for imprints in the stucco walls. It's just fascinating as you go through, looking at the architecture, the design, and what he encompassed and he built into it. I don't know if anyone could build something quite like that, because it's very neat. It's a very clean structure, and it's a very nice gallery, but at the same time, this is something that was built with just by a man with his own two hands. Self-made man, obviously, in that aspect. As you go through the gallery and they kind of transition from different groups of paintings, it's always interesting as you're looking over everything and kind of seeing what's on the walls. Some will definitely pop out with you. Some seem a little more dark. So there are the happy, and a lot of people know of the children with the smiling faces and the flowers, and the flower girl painting, which is obviously a very popular one, but there's some very, very dark paintings and dark things in there. And they do kind of transition from room to room. When you get there, as you make the first circle of the buildings of the galleries, in the center there's a garden area. Garden area is very interesting because one of the things I noted is if you wanted to think he left something encrypted or a puzzle behind, the garden could be that area, because you're walking along and you start seeing faces in the stones, faces in the pieces of wood, musical instruments hanging in the trees. It is everything in the kitchen sink, and I'm sure there is a kitchen sink thrown in there, just incorporated into every step you make. And you're kind of looking around and realizing, I didn't see that. And then you're turning your head again and saying, oh, I didn't see that. And it's just constant, every single aspect of that central garden area, that you're picking up on these strange and little nuances, like he's trying to tell you something, trying to send something. And maybe, again, that's his practical joke of tongue-in-cheek of doing all this just to simply overwhelm people, which some people felt that might be the intention. The first building that was built in the Gallery of the Sun is the chapel, the Mission in the Sun. And I believe it's dedicated to the Lady of Guadalupe, and also I think there was a dedication or something in memory of Father Kino. It had some beautiful murals all along the walls encompassing the chapel, so it was literally the murals were on the plaster. In 2017, there was a fire that pretty much devastated the chapel. They're trying to restore what they can, and I think most of the rest, it's open again, but most of the restorations have been done. But purposely, they decided not to restore all the murals so that you kind of see and remember and are reminded of the damage in there. And it's a very important place. In fact, I believe the Mission of the Sun was one of, when he first started building the galleries, one of the first buildings he built. In the 1960s, Ted opened the Ted DeGrazia's Superstition Mountain Museum, Gallery, and Film Studio. I know he did try to do some filming and other things out of there. So in the public, there was a big problem with the city of Apache Junction and the zoning. They eventually basically tried to move him out. Good move, you guys. But he lived there. It was his home. I think they sold it in the 1980s. Ted passed away in 1982. I think his wife Marion sold it off in the late 1980s. Another couple of, I believe it's actually been leveled. It was at one point up, 5,000-6,000 square foot home. But that was a gallery that he opened up and he was utilizing in the Apache Junction area. So he spent quite a bit of time in the Superstition Mountains. And in fact, that gallery stood there for a number of years. And I believe it was like sometime in the mid-70s, there was the big uproar by people in the zoning and Apache Junction. I think if everybody looked back reflectively, they would be thinking now, why didn't we let that thing come to be? I don't know if it was always considered a transition. I think there was very obvious different focal points of the mountains he loved, which were the Superstition Mountains, and he identified with, obviously, Superstition Mountain Collection, among other things that he was known for. So he had a bond with those mountains. In fact, I think the filming he did was generally in that area. So, the Superstition Mountain Museum, which is no more, it would have been very interesting to see what it became of. I don't think it would have ever taken anything away from the Gallery of the Sun. Ted DeGrazia's burial.
Stop playing with the paper.
Okay. Ted DeGrazia passed away in 1982 of cancer. A lot of people, I don't know if it's a marked spot, but I don't think many people that go through the museum really understand. And I don't know if it's actually mentioned as his burial place I think it just acts like it's a memorial spot. Anyways, Ted is buried there on the grounds. There's not just a memorial, there's a grave there. And it's well decorated and right centered between the Mission and there's another building there, like I think it was the apartment building or something like that. What's always interesting to me is seeing pictures of him in these various buildings, doing things or working or building them. You see the photographs and then you're inside them walking around. It's just such a kind of very neat place as you walk around. I was surprised, in the gift shop they didn't really seem to know much about Ted. And it's kind of a shame because I was looking to kind of talk, some of the architecture and the ideas he had as he developed this thing kind of like you want to kind of like get inside the head of it all. The bathrooms are just incredible, and you got to understand, when they were building this place, the bathrooms were the shower, the bathroom, and everything, and they were living on the site. In fact, one of the houses there that he lived in, some of the original homes that he lived in, the first apartments, were actually down around that area. So when you're kind of sitting there, you realize it was a work in progress, and you're always walking around seeing various bits of pieces of things and saying, wow, you know, he was utilizing anything and everything he could get his hands on. And I think it just kind of puts you in awe. So if you're looking to interpret kind of like the method of his madness or what he was trying to do, I'm sure there's a lot of particulars in there. I told Frank, I said, you know, there's a lot of things we saw and we've seen in his paintings and other things that you see symbolically represented in the Gallery of the Sun. And it's kind of fun and interesting to go there and then suddenly realize, you know, people look at it from a treasure hunter point of view, but from when you go back in and get inside the gallery and get inside the architecture and what he was designing, what he was doing, you suddenly have a different view of what's being laid out in front of you with these various things. I was very surprised that they had, you know, the little bit of a film about his life, and it's fun to sit and watch. I was really hoping for, I can't remember what the name of the movie is, Into the Rainbow or something. There was 2 or 3 films he shot. One was of Alicia Rivas. One is where he's the good guy, saves the girl, and there's another one where he buries paintings in a cave. And I was really hoping that they would have those films showing those in the gallery, which I don't think they do at this time. Maybe they will in the future. But the experience is pretty incredible, because as you go through, you're going to see the ceramics, you're going to see the paintings, you're going to see the watercolors, the oil paintings, see charcoals, the sketches. And you're going to see, I think there was even like yarn work and, you know, all kinds of stuff. And I was literally kind of thrown off is, okay, it literally, if there was some sort of artistic bend that way, he seemed to do it. Not only that, but the architectural of the place in which it's embedded with his artistic nature in itself. So, again, highly recommended any chance anyone gets. You're down in the Tucson area just before you get into Tucson. It's an easy place to find. A very accommodating place. Nice, just kind of walk around, and if you are there, it's just not the gallery. Each and every inch of the ground, take your time, walk around, just kind of absorb it all in, and kind of look at what he was developing, what he was thinking of, and what he put there. Obviously, the area is now part of the National Register of Historic Places, so it will be there. Good that it's going to be there, but thanks for coming out with us. Thanks for kind of like taking the trip with us down to Tucson and Ted DeGrazia's Gallery of the Sun. And hopefully we'll get a few more things in, a little maybe some interview time or some other things. Hope everybody's being safe and being well, which we are. And we will see you again next time on Chasing Legends.